Hey friends, Graham here from the recordingrevolution.com, and today I want to take you on a little tour of how I record guitars and bass in my home studio. So I'm in the middle of recording and producing one of my own EPs this year, a solo project. And last week I showed you how I'm building out drums using a virtual drum program called Easy Drummer, and how to take those drums and actually make them custom to your song. Now you're going to hear a little bit more of that today as I give you a preview of some of the bass and guitar work. But what I want to show you today is what guitars I'm using and what bass I'm using and how I'm getting my guitar sounds, and then give you 3 distinct tips that you can use to get better guitar and bass recordings in your home studio. So first, let's talk about the gear. My guitar of choice these days, believe it or not, is a $400 Fender Telecaster. It's one of the most affordable teles out there from Fender. It's the thin line modern player, semi-hollow body, maple neck, and it has P90 pickups in it. I really like this combination, not only the style, but the tone. It's a little rounder. It's not quite that bright tele tone that I'm used to on a standard, but I really like the sound of it when I played it years ago, and it's become my go-to electric guitar. So I'm using this for all the guitar work. On the bass side of things, I'm using an even cheaper guitar. I'm using a Squier Jaguar. This is the shorter neck, so it's like a 3/4 neck. It's not even a full-length bass. It's smaller. It's maybe I paid $170 for it, brand new. It's got the P bass pickup in it and the jazz bass pickup. So you get a very unique sound, and you get a combination of those 2 pickups or one over the other. And I can get almost any tone out of this that I want. I've used it on the last few records that I've played on. This is my go-to little bass secret weapon, and it's super cheap. Now, both guitars are plugged into my good friend, the Avid 11 rack. I have 2 of these. One I take live when I play in my worship band at church, and it's all permanently in a live rig. And this one is permanently racked here in my studio. And so I plug directly into this box. It's an amp modeling box. And so it's got a bunch of different amps and heads and speaker cabinets and microphone choices and stomp boxes and pedals and all kinds of effects built in. Primarily on this record, I've kind of stumbled on 2 sounds I've crafted. One is a Vox. And so I've kind of built my own version of a Vox. I'm a Vox fan. I have an AC-15 in my room that doesn't get used anymore because I have the 11 rack now. But I have a Vox sound, which you'll hear in a minute, and then I have a Fender Bassman sound that's very different. And I love both of these sounds, and I'll explain why I use both of them in a minute. On the bass side of things, I've got 2 presets that I like, the crunchy bass preset and then the classic bass preset. On this record, I'm using the classic bass, a little less overdrive, a little cleaner sound, but it's like driving an Ampeg, and it's got the 8 speakers. You're driving that tall cab, and it's got that sound, a little bit of harmonics, a little bit of grit. That sounds better to me than just a clean old DI bass. Now, a lot of people ask me, how does this 11 rack work? And it can work in a bunch of different ways. You can use it a USB or SPDIF into your interface, and you can control it digitally from Pro Tools or your DAW. I use it literally as an amp. So I run the analog line output from the back of this box into my interface as an analog line in. So there's no tweaking the sound after the fact. It's like I'm plugging into an amp and miking it up, and what you get in your DAW is what you get. That's the way I like to work, because I like to commit to a sound on recording day and not leave myself with endless options later. Now, for my audio interface, earlier this year, I upgraded to the latest Focusrite range of interfaces, the Claret. I've been a Focusrite user for many, many years, had a couple of the different Sapphires, the Sapphire Pro 40, the Liquid Sapphire 56, and now Focusrite has a line of Thunderbolt interfaces, the Claret, and I wanted a Thunderbolt interface because it's much lower latency, it's a much faster connection, and they've updated the converters, the preamps. It's just the latest thing that they have, and the price is insanely affordable. I went with their 8 Pre-X, the Claret 8 Pre-X, so it's permanently racked here in my space, and it's just 8 mic pre's. They also have the air switch, which gives you that ISA, the transformer-based pre. I actually have an ISA 220 racked in my rack as well, so it kind of mimics that sound a bit. So you get some variety on the preamps, but just a very clean, beautiful sounding interface. And so I'm running all my guitars and bass from the 11 rack into this line input on the back and running that into Pro Tools. Now what I want to do is jump into my session and show you these tracks. What do they sound like? So you can hear those instruments into that 11 rack, into the interface, hear what the sounds were. And I want to show you the 3 tips and techniques that I'm using to build out what I hope to be a really good sounding record. And you can use these if you're recording bass or guitar. So let's jump in. So this is a very simple and straightforward song. I think it'll be great to show you my mindset. I've got two main guitar parts, a guitar on the left and a guitar on the right. I told you about my Vox sound. It's guitar Vox. The Bassman, Fender Bassman is a guitar Fender. And then there's my main bass sound, okay? And up here is the drum performance so far from Easy Drummer that I showed you in the last video. And I've laid down a tambourine. I grabbed my tambourine, $12. It adds instant energy into your chorus. It's a real helpful little tip for you. First, here's the bass sound. I wanted you to hear what that sounded like. Right? I love that. Just clear, clean, but also beefy sound. That's going on there in the middle. I've got a guitar on the left. It's the Vox guitar. And then a guitar on the right. This is the Fender. So the Fender sound, the Bassman sound that I crafted is a little punchier, a little more mid-rangey bright. The Vox is a little rounder the way I've got it set up. Okay, so those are the main three sounds. And then together, this is what they sound like. All right. Now, here are the three things I want to show you about how to get a better sounding guitar and bass recording in your sessions. There's three things to consider. Number one is this. I talk about this whenever I get the chance. Always choose two different sounding tones for your left and your right. So in my case, this is two different amp sounds. I've got the Vox setting on the left and the Fender setting on the right. And I have crafted these to be very different from each other. Like I said, one is rounder, one is a little brighter. They just have different tones, different cabinets modeling, different amp settings, different virtual mics on them, different EQs on them. The point here is if you have two different amps, use them, one on the left, one on the right. If you have two different guitars, you could do that with the same amp, one on the left, one on the right. If you have two different pickup patterns, you could do that, one on the left, one on the right. Or two different instruments entirely. You could have an acoustic on the left, electric on the right. You could have a synth on the left, electric guitar on the right. You could have a piano on one side, you could have a synth on the other. The point is that you pick something that's different tonally from the opposite instrument, and you make these your hard left, hard right dominant instruments, okay? In this case, this is very subtle. This is about as subtle as it gets. I just have the same guitar, same pickup, but different amp settings. And so they have different tones, and so your ear perceives them on the edges a little bit better, okay? Here they are together. Okay, they're similar enough, but they're different enough that you notice them. If I use the same Vox setting for both and I just doubled it, yeah, it would sound double, but it would start to lose its definition, especially when you add the rest of the instruments in the mix. So tip number one is choose different sounds on the left and the right. And there's a million ways to do that. Tip number two is consider your arrangement. And that's what I want to play for you right now is keep the song interesting from start to finish with your guitar and bass work or your main mid-range instruments. What I want to show you is how I've done this. This is a very simple and repetitive song, so it's almost harder to do that on this type of song than say a song that's got more interesting parts. So I think it's a great example to show you, even on simple songs, you can do this. Let me walk you through the changes here. Same sounds, just slightly different variations. Here's the intro. Now we're in the verse. Right, that was a distinct change. I dropped down to palm muting on the guitars. So the energy level changes. That's the only thing that really changes. Halfway through, they come back in full bore. Obviously, now I'm in a chorus, so different guitar part. So far we've kept some variety. Full on intro, palm mute verse, picks back up halfway through the verse, which keeps you moving. And now we're into the chorus. So there's still variety here. Now we have to continue to change it up for the rest of the song. So here, I showed you in the previous video how the drums change up here. I also am dropping out the rhythm guitars here. Now, there might be some lead guitar part stuff that's going to be happening here yet. That's not tracked yet, so it might fill that hole a little bit, or it might be completely empty with the vocal, bass, and toms. Guitars come back in halfway through. You're hearing that on the bass now. The bass is doing some interesting fills here or there to keep it interesting, right? Just little things to play off each other to make sure that they're bouncing back and forth, keeping some variety. All right, and then we go back into the chorus again. There's not much variety on the guitar work here. Again, so another lead part will probably be played. Vocals change up here. You'll hear that in a later video. Then this song is very repetitive again. It gets back to the main riff at the end, but instead I dropped out the main guitars and added one more guitar part to change the feel of this same riff, and I layered it right here. You'll hear it in the outro. Right? That nice ethereal, mid-rangey, delayed guitar sound where it's doing those interesting chords that add a whole different feel to the same the bass is doing. This song is technically repeating itself, yet by changing up or adding a different chord progression or different flavor and inversion on top of the original riff, now we've brought it to some new life and given it one more chance to be interesting. Otherwise, this song would be a little too boring. So this adds a whole other flavor that then the rest of the song builds off of as we go to the end. Right? It just now has its own vibe, its own feel. We've taken a very simple song with, maybe the guitar tones are great. Maybe the song is cool, but if the arrangement continues to be boring or overly repetitive, you're going to miss out. And so there's lots of different things we're going to do to make the song interesting: vocals, other instruments, lead guitar parts. I've done some stuff with the tambourine. Obviously, I showed you how I built out the drums. Those have to change and have variety and interest. But today I want to show you again the guitar work. A lot of what makes great guitar work is variety and it's strategic arrangements, not busyness, not complexity, just engaging from start to finish. That's tip number 2, is try to keep it engaging from start to finish. Bring things in and out where you can. And the third thing I want to show you is simply use your plugins, man. What I've done is I recorded the best sounds possible, the ones that I like. And then what I've done is I've tried to enhance them with some plugins. Okay, so on the bass, I've got a few things going on here. I've got the virtual mix rack from Stephen Slate, and I'm running it through a few things. His virtual channel, the Neve channel, giving a little bit of harmonics. I'm compressing it a little bit here with that 401. And then I'm doing a little bit of EQ work. Just rolled off a little bit on the low end, and I'm adding some upper mid-range around 3K with the Neve EQ here. It's a great sounding mid-range. And then it got too loud, so I'm turning it down. So, I'm adding some stuff here. So let's see. Get this section. Here it is before. subtle, but it's a little bit more present in the mid-range that I liked and a little fuller. I'm also running it through a tape machine, okay? Pretending like I'm tracking to tape. I've got it on the 2-inch tape, 15 IPS, real fat, soupy sound, and so I really liked how that sounded. I'll take this off. A little more fullness, a little more life. It's really, really nice. If I take away the two sets of plugins, the bass just kind of goes back to what it was before. Very subtle. The tone was great before. It's a little fuller, a little fatter, and a little bit more enhanced. And I'm taking that process through to the guitars, everything from running a channel strip with a little bit of high pass, a little bit of compression on the guitars just to clean it up a little bit. Again, hitting tape machine on the guitar work. And then even this little outro guitar, just adding the delay itself. Since I didn't have a pedal I really wanted to play with, I put an actual delay plugin on here. So this by itself sounds like this. Added some noise reduction because that hum was killing me. So kill some of the noise. And then I'm using a little bit of SSL just to roll off some more low end all the way up to 200. Even rolled off some top end tremendously with a low pass filter, a little bit of compression. So it goes from this. Thinner, right? Then I added the delay, and I'm using a multi-delay that just sounded really cool and just blended it to taste. And I'm hitting a tape machine with that as well. Well, there you have it, friends, how I'm building out guitar and bass in my home studio. And remember, those 3 strategies when you're recording bass or guitars, or really any instrument, keep in mind, have different sounds on the left and the right, whether it's different amps or different guitars or different pickup patterns, or even different instruments. Have different sounds on the hard left and the right to give a little bit of separation and clarity. Build out an arrangement that is interesting from start to finish. Different guitar parts, different dynamics, bring things in and out. Keep the song engaging from start to finish. And then number 3, harness the power of your plugins. Go ahead and tweak the sound after you've recorded it and clean up the stuff, the room noise a little bit, compress a little bit to even out the performance. Add some harmonics, run it through some tape saturation, whatever you would do if you had an outboard rack of gear. Process a little bit on recording day if it helps them blend together, and then go ahead and commit that to the track. Come mix time, things will really fall into place. They'll sit a lot nicer, and they'll start to sound like a record as you're progressing, which inspires you, and it builds on all of that momentum so that you're more ready to record vocals, other instruments, and you're more excited about the process. Hope that helps give you some idea of how I like to work in the home studio. Keep in mind, more videos like this coming. We'll talk about vocals. We're going to talk about mixing. We're going to talk about even the whole songwriting process as I sort of show you the completed song and where it came from on a demo. All that's to come. If you like the video, subscribe. Just hit the button here in the video. And also, if you want more material sent to your inbox, stuff that's exclusive that I don't send anywhere else, join the mailing list. Just hit the button below the video. I'll send you a free video series on how to start your mixes the smart way, as well as my popular ebook, The #1 Rule of Home Recording, absolutely free when you join the list. And then every week, I send people on my list exclusive material, tips, and training and tutorials that I don't post anywhere else. So if you want my best stuff, join the list. It's free. Have a great week. Make some great music. I'll see you on the next video.